Hi, my name is Candice Nelson. I'm a Master of Science candidate in the Applied Nutrition program at the University of New England. And today we're here to talk about Vietnamese food culture. Vietnamese cuisine brings together elements of Chinese, French, and Indian cuisines, but it maintains its own identity. Today we'll talk about some characteristics of Vietnamese cuisine, including the markets and how they bring a rich sense of community to the nation, the climate that led to a demand for the freshest food possible, what a typical meal looks like and how it's eaten, food for celebrations, nutrition-related health conditions, and what it's like to move to America. First, the markets. The markets are described as social and lively. The streets are full even early in the morning. The markets open around 6 a.m. for breakfast, which is commonly eaten outside of the house. A common dish is called xoi, which is rice with meat, mushroom, and onion or shrimp. At the early markets, families buy ingredients for lunch. The markets will close up around 10 a.m. and they reopen at 4 p.m. for ingredients for dinner. It's also common to pick up a snack at the after-work market. In the evenings, mobile vendors come around selling snacks. Usually that would be pho, which is a broth-based soup, wonton soup, or bun, which is a byproduct of rice. The markets aren't technically legal, which creates some comedic moments when the police come around and the vendors quickly close up shop and wrap everything up. As soon as the police leave, though, sales resume. The Vietnamese have a demand for the freshest food possible. They even would like it still alive if possible. So that leaves little time for hygiene oversight, which led to historically high infection rates because of unsafe foods. That's of particular concern for poultry. The hot, humid climate created a demand for the freshest ingredients possible. That's because food would spoil quickly in the hot temperatures. So even now with refrigeration, the demand for fresh food persists. They just have a taste for it and that's what they want. Families typically cook 2 hot meals per day, lunch and dinner, and everything is consumed in that sitting. There's no leftovers because they would go bad quickly. A typical meal in Vietnam consists of about 2 cups of rice per meal. That's quite a bit more than we have in America, where the serving size is about half a cup. To ensure that they can fill up on rice, Vietnamese don't consume beverages before or during the meal. Typically, mealtime was the only time when people ate, so they wanted to make sure they could fill up on enough rice to stay satisfied until the next meal. Along with rice, a meal consists of a pot of stock, a plate of meat, fish, or tofu, a plate of vegetables, and then limes, chilies, and herbs for garnish and seasoning. Meals are eaten with a pair of chopsticks and a spoon. One person in the family will serve the stock and rice from communal dishes using a large serving spoon. And then meat and vegetables are served on trays, and each person will grab what they want using their chopsticks. It's considered bad manners to put your own chopsticks in the serving bowls, so just use the spoons for that. When consuming rice, diners will hold their bowl up to their mouth and use chopsticks to push the rice in. Soup, however, isn't held up to the mouth. They use the spoon and chopsticks. The chopsticks are used to push the noodles onto the spoon and then use the spoon to put it in the mouth. For special meals, there's usually an element of honoring the deceased. That's important in Vietnamese culture. So often a little bit of each dish will be left on an altar as an offering to the spirits of those ancestors. The belief is that souls that aren't nourished will be restless, and so they want their loved ones to rest in peace, and so therefore they feed them. Dinner parties aren't typical in Vietnam, but families do gather for certain events, such as the anniversary of a death, maybe the birthday of a loved one, weddings and funerals. Tet is also a family gathering. That's the Lunar New Year. It's the most important holiday in Vietnam. It celebrates the arrival of spring. So common foods eaten at the Tet celebration would include ban chung, which is rice cakes with mung beans and pork. Ban dae is a white rice cake. Can mang is bamboo soup. Gio is sausage and banana leaves, and then sticky rice. Bun thang is an elaborate and delicate noodle soup, and that's served generally 3 days into the new year, and it's a way of sending off the souls of loved ones who came to celebrate with the family. At these family meals, they're often long, like several hours. They're social and lively, just like Vietnamese culture. Family members generally sit with others from their generation. The top table is reserved for the highest ranking man in the family who will carry on the family name. At these events, 8 dishes are shared. 4 are served on plates, and that would include cold meats, boiled chicken or duck, eggs, salad, and pickles. And then 4 dishes are served in bowls, and so that would be soup or braised dishes. Undernourishment is a problem in Vietnam. About 13% of households are food insecure, meaning they don't know where their next meal is coming from. 29% of children under age 5 and women are anemic. 1 in 5 children is short for their age. That means another word for that is stunted. 40% of men and women are malnourished. Common deficiencies are vitamin A, iron, iodine, and zinc. And the child mortality rate for children under age 5 is 16 out of every 1,000 live births, and 45% of that is attributed to malnutrition. Some health concerns in Vietnam include high rates of gastrointestinal cancer. This is caused by a process of polishing rice that uses asbestos. So it's important if you ever see Vietnamese rice in grocery stores to wash it before consuming it. Medical care is sought only after home remedies have been exhausted. People are really dependent on their families and their experience, so they'll ask around and try different things before ever seeking medical care. That means by the time they do see a doctor, the condition is usually advanced and much harder to treat. The Vietnamese have a tradition of balancing hot and cold, which is believed to bring good health. So conditions are divided into either hot or cold. So something like a skin condition is considered hot and should be treated with cold foods. So cold foods are considered rice, fruit, vegetables, or fish. So a cold condition is diarrhea, which is common, and that should be treated with hot foods like meat, spices, and sweets, according to tradition. This is contrary to what American nutritionists might recommend for different conditions. So that's important to keep in mind and know that an immigrant from Vietnam might not follow your advice if it's contrary to this belief. When Vietnamese people move to America, that generally has a negative impact on their diet. Immigrants consume less grains, fruits, and vegetables in America, and they start adapting to the American diet, consuming more fat, cholesterol, soda, fast food, processed food. Because Americans are taller, Vietnamese tend to see that as an indication that the diet is healthier. So one thing that they've expressed interest in is promoting growth height-wise for their children. So nutritionists will often substitute dairy into Vietnamese recipes. In Vietnam, they don't consume a lot of dairy, again, because of the climate, it goes bad quickly. So they use coconut milk or sweetened condensed milk. So in recipes, just substituting in dairy milk can help promote height. That said, lactose intolerance is also common among the Vietnamese, which is a problem for calcium. Intake is especially low, especially for women. And one problem is that it's difficult to find their common calcium sources that would be familiar to immigrants. So in Vietnam, they get their calcium from things like tofu, canned fish, fish sauce, dried shrimp, and greens that they might have trouble finding in America. So one thing nutritionists can do is help them find non-milk varieties of calcium. So greens, for example, they just might look different here. And so helping them cook those or give them recipes to use. Another thing nutritionists can do to promote good health among Vietnamese immigrants is to help them recreate Vietnamese dishes with food available here, and especially the diet. The Vietnamese eat a lot of fresh produce, a lot of vegetables and fruit and whole grains. Just recreating that with what they can find in America would be helpful. Also know that immigrants have a distaste for foods that aren't fresh. That's a problem here since we get most of our groceries from a grocery store where they've been trucked in and maybe sitting for a few days. Immigrants really want things that are fresh from the ground, so maybe helping them garden or find fresh sources for their food. Other challenges that immigrants from Vietnam face are a new measurement system. It can be difficult to learn and adapt recipes. And then many women stay at home in Vietnam and spend time cooking and caring for the family. When they move to America, they're much more likely to be outside the home during the day, either at school or at work. So they don't have that time to create fresh, healthy meals for the family. There's some good news. Economic growth has brought significant improvement to the people of Vietnam. Residents are consuming higher amounts of starch, protein, and fat. Incidence of malnutrition has lessened. Over the past 2 decades, stunting has been halved among the children. Vitamin A is supplemented in things like fish sauce that's commonly consumed. They've increased hygiene. They've really taught hand washing and caring for yourself when you're sick. Zinc supplements have been more popular. They're encouraged. Again, after a bout of diarrhea, it's important to replenish zinc, so that helps. And of course, just increasing hygiene reduces risk of infection. Vitamin consumption in Vietnam is among the highest in the world. People consume about 290 grams of vegetables per day. One other issue is that in Vietnam, they've traditionally had a very basic diet. There wasn't a lot of diversity, and so more diversity has been added since the 1980s. So that helps with some of those vitamins and minerals that were lacking previously. So Vietnam has a very rich food culture, and it's important to learn more about it and respect people from that nation and know where they're coming from. So thank you for listening today. And here are some references.